Coming up on Tech News Weekly, it's just me this week. Well, me and some awesome interviews. We kick things off with a story of the week about how lots of Amazon Echo devices have made their way to the Amazon graveyard. Yeah, what devices are still around, which are gone, which do I really enjoy, which do I think should be gone or should be here? It's a great conversation about how Amazon kind of just uses us to test its different devices and, kind of pay for it in the meantime. Then Dan Moren of SixColors is back. Yes, this time though, to talk about Apple's new Mac lineup. The iMac, the Mac Mini, and the MacBook Pro all made their way to us this week, and Dan Moren has the lowdown. Afterward, the VP of Developer Relations at GitHub, Martin Woodward, joins the show to give us the lowdown on GitHub Universe, GitHub's annual conference where new and very cool tools have been announced. Then we round things out with a rundown. Look, we're going up and down. A rundown of Apple's Genmoji feature, which is soon to make its way to our devices. A little bit about what that could mean, a little, some confusion there as well, and what you should expect going forward. All of that coming up on Tech News Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 360, with me, Mikah Sargent, recorded Thursday, October 31st, 2024. GitHub Copilot goes multi-model. It's time for Tech News Weekly, the show where every week we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news. Hello, and welcome to this very show. I am your host, Mikah Sargent, and I am joined this week by Mikah Sargent. Yes, this is the fifth Thursday of the month. Therefore, it is just a nice little adventure between the two of us, you, the listener, and me, the host, unless, of course, you're listening out loud to a room full of people, in which case, hello, people. It's you and all of us. All right, let's get into things this week. I've got two interviews planned for you, but I am kicking things off with a story of the week. And the first story of the week that I want to talk about comes from Andrew Lasweski at The Verge. And I want to be careful here. I'm not going to be talking about every single thing in the story that I'm about to introduce because I want you all to go and check out the piece. I want to make sure that the value is there. So first and foremost, I'm going to share in the Club TWiT Discord the link to this article, and then we'll get to talking about it. So this is a piece entitled The Amazon Echo Graveyard, and I love it because it is a look at the Amazon Echo ecosystem and the devices that over time Amazon has shuttered or tossed into the graveyard in some way. And when you look at them all spelled out like that, all listed out like that, it's kind of surprising just how many devices Amazon has introduced and then pulled away from us shortly afterward. Amazon, or it's usually Google that gets the sort of bad press for always going and removing different products that it announces, different services that it announces. But it's not just Google, it's also Amazon. And interestingly, there are a couple left off the list of the Amazon Echo Graveyard. But in any case, I want to talk about a couple of these that existed for a period of time and then disappeared for whatever reason. The first one is actually the first one that makes it onto this list. It's a device called the Echo Look. Now, some of you may remember the Echo Look. It was this camera that you were supposed to put in your bedroom, and in particular in the area where you keep your clothes, or around the area where you keep your clothes. And this camera would take a full body length photo of you and also video. And you would use that to provide fashion advice. Now, the interesting thing is the fashion advice was in part done using what they called at the time machine learning algorithms, and in part done from, quote, fashion specialists. I remember when the Amazon Echo Look came out, and I remember that right after it came out, Amazon really started being in the news for privacy concerns. And Amazon has worked on rehabilitating that image, but the Look came out at the sort of peak time of people being very skeptical and concerned about what Amazon was collecting about us and how much information they had. So if you can imagine, while this is going on, suddenly they've got a device that they're saying, hey, you should put this in your bedroom and you should let us see everything you're wearing and let us give you advice on how to wear it. No. That wasn't going to work. Also, I should mention, it was $200. The device debuted in 2017. And believe it or not, according to Andrew Lasweski, it took until 2020 for the device to be discontinued. This piece, by the way, also has a great little part at the end of maybe this is a device that should or shouldn't be resurrected. This one gets the no rating because no one needed it in 2017. No one needs it now, says Lasweski. Now, look, I think that it would be nice in theory, and this is probably what the people who came up with this idea were thinking, wouldn't it be nice if there was a way for me to have a catalog of all of the clothing that I own and some sort of system that helps me decide what I should wear? Yeah, in theory, that would be nice. But from Amazon and for that much money, maybe not. And given those privacy concerns, given the fact that the device just simply was not as popular as they had hoped, it quickly went the way of the dodo. So yeah, that's just one example. Now, there's another example on the list, or another, it's not even an example, it is truly a product that was discontinued. These were the Echo buttons. Now, these Echo buttons came in a 2-pack, and they were what Amazon called ALEXA gadgets. These were kind of extensions of the main app, or the main, whether it be the app, the Echo app, or it be one of the products, you kind of connected it to them. Well, those buttons were specifically created to be kind of like buzzer buttons, because at the time, Amazon was super hyping this game interface and set of features that your Echo devices had. So you could play little games, you could do sort of game show style gaming with the Echo and use these buttons to chime in and give you a response. Unfortunately, that did not pan out. I don't think I have ever, even me who, tinkers with this stuff as much as possible, I don't think I ever played a game on my Echo. The closest I ever came was playing like 20 questions, which I don't really know if I consider that a game. But these were supposed to be, the opportunity to do game show stuff. But what this reminded me of is another product that is not quite Echo, but instead was Amazon, that I really liked and was sad to see go. And that was the, I can't remember exactly what they called them at the time, if it was Prime Button or Amazon Button. But these were little buttons that you could buy. They were physical buttons, and you would use, you'd stick these somewhere near a product that you regularly purchased. So let's say, for example, I buy my paper towels from Amazon. You could buy a branded, I'm trying to think, Charmin that's a paper towel brand, I think, paper towel button, and you'd stick it in the cabinet, the pantry, wherever you keep your paper towels. And then as you started to run low, all you had to do is hit the button, and then it would put in an order for your paper towels. They would come soon after. I bought a lot of those buttons because basically I think they were like $4 or something like that. And if you bought one and you used it, then it would take the cost of the button. I think it was $4.99. It would take the cost of the button off of your first order. So essentially it was free. And so $4.99 would come off of the first order. I had maybe 10 of them for different products that I owned, and I really liked them. Some people might say, well, you could do the subscription, right? You could just have it on a subscription. But sometimes I use things faster. Sometimes I use things slower. And so this was just a great way to say, oh, I am starting to run low on this. Boop, hit the button. 2 days later, or in some cases now, 1 day later, it would be, that would arrive at my doorstep. Those products got Amazon in trouble with the government. And honestly, it still makes very little sense to me, but they had to discontinue them as well. And that was one of the products that I actually thought was really great. Since then, people have come up with ways to use those buttons for kind of to be smart buttons that you can control, turn on and off lights and stuff. But I just never, played around with that. So I kind of let those go. So that exists in the graveyard, in the Amazon graveyard, but not so much the Amazon Echo graveyard. But these Echo buttons reminded me of that. Another product that made this list was the Echo wall clock. Actually, before I get to that, though, Burke in the chat asked me, where do you put 10 of these buttons? Whenever it came to those product buttons, again, it was just wherever the product was. So if you keep your toilet paper in some place, then on the door of the cabinet, you just stuck the button because it had like 3M sticky stuff on the back that was removable. You could remove it, like restickable, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And so I would put, the one in there. I had a cabinet that had my cleaning supplies in it. And for each of the cleaning supplies that I had, dishwasher tablets, the dishwasher rinse aid, my favorite multi-surface cleaner, just 3 of those buttons would be stacked, boop, 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 right next to each other because they're very small on the cabinet door on the inside. So then you just have the door open and then you boom, boom, drop it. That was for the other buttons, not for these Echo buttons, which are a totally different thing. I just am comparing the two. So Burke was asking, are they not palm sized? These Echo buttons are. The Amazon buttons that I was talking about were much, much smaller. They were just a little bit bigger than a AAA battery because, in fact, they were powered by a AAA battery. Moving along here, one product that I'm so sad was discontinued by Amazon, and so sad enough, in fact, that I actually have the listing in a camel alert in case Amazon ever decides to bring it back, is the Echo wall clock. The Echo wall clock is this device that that the Verge says it was kind of simple and underpowered, and so it wasn't very useful. I thought it was. It served as a regular clock, but it connected, kind of like the other gadgets, to your Echo smart speaker, and it would tell you the progress of timers that you had going. So you could glance up at the wall clock if you had, a 15-minute timer, a 10-minute timer, and you would be able to see how much of that time was left by these kind of LED lines around the outside of the clock. I thought that was brilliant. And I'm really sad that it's not around anymore. I think that if Amazon did bring it back, maybe you put a microphone in it so that it can be another place where you would be able to actually interact with the Echo via ALEXA. But I thought that it was a clever use of wall space. And I think that's what it was too, is that it's kind of up and out of the way, but it gives you just a little bit more information than you would otherwise have. And it was just a nice looking clock, frankly. The clock looked nice. So that clock was announced in 2018, and discontinued shortly thereafter. Apparently, there were some connectivity issues involved. Amazon worked with Disney on a Mickey Mouse version. That one stuck around for a lot longer, and I was bummed about the loss of that. The other thing that was not on this list, but was very much an Amazon and an Echo device, was a product that was one of Amazon's first look products. These are, I think they were called Amazon Day One products. And the Day One product that I thought was super cool was this little, what they called a sticky note printer. It had a special kind of sticky note material inside that would work with a thermal printer, and you could use it to make a shopping list, make a quick little note. You could also print out a Sudoku puzzle or a crossword puzzle. Whatever you wanted to do, you could print it out on the sticky note printer, and all you had to do was just talk out loud to ALEXA. As a Day One product, though, it was basically the idea that if enough people are interested in it, then we will put it out into the world. If they're not, then we won't put it out into the world. People were interested enough in it, and so it did become a thing, the smart sticky note printer. Unfortunately, as you can see if you're watching from this listing, it says currently unavailable. That means that Amazon really didn't stick with it, as it were. There are quite a few more devices that make this list, and you should definitely go read it just to get a reminder of all of the stuff that Amazon has announced over time and has unfortunately kicked to the curb. Amazon loves to do the spaghetti projects, and we are all kind of its public beta testers who help to fund this stuff. And I think that list is a good reminder of that. All right, we're going to take a quick break before we come back with our first of two interviews today. And the first one's going to be all about the Apple announcements. But I want to tell you about US Cloud, who are bringing you this episode of Tech News Weekly. US Cloud is the #1 Microsoft Unified Support replacement. US Cloud is the global leader in third-party Microsoft Enterprise support, supporting 50 of the Fortune 500. Switching to US Cloud can save your business 30% to 50% on a true, comparable replacement for Microsoft Unified Support. US Cloud supports the entire Microsoft stack 24/7, 365, responds faster, and resolves tickets quicker for clients all around the world, and you always talk to real humans. You can check out the proven track record, expert-level engineers with an average of 14.9 years of experience, and that's for break-fix or DSE. 100% domestic teams, so your data never leaves the US, financially backed SLAs on response time, and initial ticket response averages that are under 4 minutes. In 2023, 94% of US Cloud's clients reported saving 1/3 or more when switching from Microsoft Unified Support to US Cloud. From Fortune 500 companies and large health systems to major financial institutions and federal agencies, US Cloud ensures that vital Microsoft systems are working for more than 6 million users globally every day. Every day. It was wild getting to talk to the folks at US Cloud and hearing what you would have otherwise and how it doesn't stack up to what US Cloud is able to offer. If you need this level of support and you have been using Microsoft Unified Support and you've been looking for a replacement, I think you found them. You know, big brands trust US Cloud. There's Caterpillar, HP, Aflac, Dun & Bradstreet, Under Armour, KeyBank. Even the IT folks at Gartner have chosen US Cloud for their Microsoft support needs. A director of information technology says, and within an hour, US Cloud responded with, I want to say, 4 engineers. So not only did they bring the right guys to the call, but they brought the cavalry. I just felt like, wow, that was amazing. That was unlike anything I had experienced with Microsoft in my 8 years of being with Premier. We made the right choice. When it comes to compliance, no one gets it more than US Cloud. You've got ISO, GDPR, ESG compliance, and those are not just regulatory requirements, but actual strategic imperatives for the company that drive operational efficiency, legal compliance, risk management, corporate reputation. These standards foster trust and loyalty among customers and stakeholders. So you're saying you've got this compliance, and that's what they want to hear. They attract investment. They ensure long-term sustainability and success in this competitive global market. So visit uscloud.com, book a call today to find out how much your team can save. That's uscloud.com to book a call today and get faster Microsoft support for less. Awesome, awesome, US Cloud. Thanks so much for being a sponsor on this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. All righty, we are back from the break, and we are here with a familiar face joining us from somewhere on the East Coast. It's Dan Moren, SixColors East Coast Bureau Chief. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Micah. Happy Halloween to you.
Happy Halloween to you as well. I hope you have lots of candy to either hoard or give out.
Too much of it already. It's bad news around here.
So originally we had places to go, people to see, and then that changed. And so I rushed to get some candy, and I'm looking forward to handing it out and being the house on the street that gives full size candy bars.
Oh, man.
Woo! Very exciting.
You're a legend.
I hope to be. So you are joining us not to talk about candy, but to talk about candy? I don't know. You're here to talk about Apple's week of announcements, caramel-covered apples. No, this is the series of products that Apple announced this week instead of doing an event, and it's all about the Mac. Apple, if I'm not mistaken, kicked off the week by talking about by introducing its new iMac. Can you tell us about what we're working with there and what updates we've seen?
Sure. Yeah, this is the M4 iMac. We have previously seen both M3 and M1 versions of it. Skip the M2 because, you don't need to be, don't show off iMac. You're okay. A lot of what we're seeing here is not necessarily totally blockbuster and new. It comes in colors, which the previous one did as well. They've done a refresh in the colors to make them, I think, pop a little more. Micah, I know you, like me, are a big fan of the color green. And I think the green iMac looks fantastic.
It's phenomenal.
I know. I wish I had a reason to get one because it looks great. But under the hood, we're looking at the M4 processor, which of course is the new generation of Apple Silicon. It debuted earlier this year in the iPad Pro. But now it is getting moved throughout Apple's other products. The big part of that, the reason that we're seeing such a push on that is, of course, Apple Intelligence and making sure that all these processors and Macs are equipped to do that, to carry out all those generative AI features Apple is rolling out over the next several months. There are a couple nice additions here in general. For example, the higher level iMac, I'll be clear, all of them come with just the M4. There's no M4 Pro or any better processor in this. But if you move up from the base level to go from the model at the very bottom that has 2 Thunderbolt ports, you can move up to one that has 4 Thunderbolt ports. Previously, it was 2 Thunderbolt ports and 2 USB-C ports instead. That was like the best you could do. But now they're all Thunderbolt ports in the back, and they're nice. Thunderbolt 4 ports, which previously I believe they were Thunderbolt 3 ports. So, it's a little better. You get a little more bang for your buck. Apple has also raised the minimum RAM across the board for all of its computers to 16 gigabytes. So all of these benefit from that as well. Other than that, there's not too much here. It's a nice little update, but it's nothing that's going to blow people away. The only other little detail is that they've also refreshed all their input peripherals, the Magic Keyboard, Magic Trackpad, and Magic Mouse, to swap out the Lightning connectors, which have kind of been deprecated for USB-C. Other than that, yeah, the iMac remains as the iMac has often been, a all-in-one computer that's pretty affordable.
Mm-hmm. Of course, with the promise of Apple Intelligence across the board, this helps to bring that in line. When Apple announced this iMac, how much of the push involved the kind of what we've seen before, where Apple Intelligence was first and foremost in the announcement and in the videos about it? Did this get positioned as a new Apple Intelligence device?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a big part of the press release they issued, and the video was probably about a third about Apple Intelligence, a theme that you'll see continuing throughout the week. I should mention two other minor updates here that are nice. One, they've added that 12 megapixel center stage camera that's on so many of the other devices, including the studio display. And two, they also are now offering a nano texture glass option on this, which is the less reflective. If you're worried about having your computer someplace with a lot of glare, it can sort of minimize that. But yeah, it seems like the biggest part of this push was really about, hey, let's have the iMac ready to do Apple Intelligence. And that also rolled out on Monday along with this round of updates, the iMac updates.
Would I have to buy a green iMac in order to get a green Magic Keyboard? Or can I just get that separate?
I'm sorry, you cannot. You can only buy, the keyboards only come in white and black. Which is mostly just silver with white or black keys. Yeah, you can't buy individual color versions. However, I will say keep an eye on eBay because you never know. Those things do pop up. People get rid of them because they use their own keyboard. So there's a chance. There's always a chance.
There's always a chance. I would love it. So that was the thing that kicked off the week. And then Apple kind of had a little pop in to say, by the way, 18.1 is here, which means the first round of the 2 rounds of Apple Intelligence features are here. And some of you will have that now, and some of you will have it later. And also it's on a wait list, and maybe you'll be on the wait list. That's all a mess, and I don't want to talk about that because I want to talk about the next the next Mac product that Apple announced. One that seems to be a darling among the tech press in particular and nerds everywhere, and that is the Mac Mini. And apparently it got a little more Mini this year, which is why I have to say it like that, very annoyingly.
That's Apple does have very strict rules about those things. I mean, is it a darling of the tech press? Well, that's because it's adorable. It's a tiny little computer that they made even smaller. They've revamped the Mac Mini. The Mac Mini has had very few design changes in its history. The previous design, which is sort of that Unibuy design, had more or less been there for 14 years and was originally designed to be wide enough for an optical drive. So that dates it pretty well there. So obviously they had an opportunity here, especially with Apple Silicon, to basically say, can we make this smaller? Can we, reduce the amount of material we're using to build this, all of those things. I mean, if you looked at the previous Mac Mini generations, they're almost largely empty. Like they had a bunch of empty space in them. So this was really an engineering feat that was enabled by the switch to Apple Silicon. It's about 5 inches in each direction. So it's a bit smaller. The previous one was 7.75 inches. It's closer probably in just sort of the footprint to a Apple TV these days. It's a little bigger. The Apple TV is, I think, 3.6 or so. So it's still got a little bit of size on that, but it's much smaller than the previous Mini. It is, however, taller. It's 2 inches tall. So it is taller than both the Apple TV and the Mac Mini, though not together. I checked. And it has an entirely new thermal system that helps enable the cooling. They've really packed in the technology there. One big addition that I think is great, they have, for the first time in the history of the Mac Mini, put ports on the front. There are 2 USB-C ports on the front, in addition to a headphone jack, which is an interesting choice in this day and age, but there it is. It also features 3 Thunderbolt 5 ports if you're using the M4 Pro version. They are Thunderbolt 4 ports if you're on the base M4, as well as HDMI, Gigabit Ethernet, and power. One other fun note, the power button, it's on the bottom. It's on the bottom of the computer.
Well, so why do you, what do you, when, what, how come? Why?
Well, they saw the way that the Magic Mouse charged, and they're like, that doesn't go far enough. No.
What do we think they were thinking here?
I have a theory, and my theory is, when it comes to Apple making these kinds of decisions, they're almost always born out of some degree of practicality. Mm-hmm. If you look at the previous version of the Mac Mini, the back was all plastic. It's now aluminum all the way around, and in order to get a button in there, they would have had to do something, either like put it plastic coming through the aluminum, which I can see why they wouldn't like, or if you do it metal, it has to be curved, which is
like it is on the Studio.
Yeah, exactly. And that may have just been something that was slightly more expensive, and they just didn't want to spend the time and money and research and design doing that. And they figured, hey, people don't turn their Mac Minis on and off maybe that much, right? I mean, you might restart it, but a lot of these also exist in like server environments.
Yeah.
And you generally don't need to get to the power button very often. So I think this is just a matter of expediency. They decided, you know what, it's easier and cheaper for us to put it on the bottom, and it's really not going to affect that many people. So there you go. And I will say, gone are the days, right, when these things had spinning discs in them. If you want to literally just pick it up off your desk
right,
and press the button.
It's
not going to affect anything that's happening there. I mean, if you stack something on top of it, sure, but it's not going to break anything inside the computer.
Yeah, that was my one thing is there are times when I do need to get to the power button on the Mac Studio. Rare, but they do happen.
Yeah, sure.
And even with it on the back, because of what you've said, it's, it's got that nice little curve. It's metal. And so it's very hard to find. There's no dip in or anything like that. And so I like the idea that you kind of won't miss this button, but it's on the bottom. And so if you've got a bunch of stuff plugged in it and some USB, I guess, anyway, it feels a little weird.
It is like a little weird. It's a little weird.
It's fine. It's fine.
I mean, I always forget on my Mini right now which side it's on. I always have to like put my hands back there and be like, is there a power button on this side? Is there a power button on this side? Yeah.
What's going
I feel like I'm in one of those things where you put your hands in, you're trying to figure out like what people have put like tactile. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird. A tactile puzzle every time it is.
Every time.
And then last, but certainly definitely not least, Apple announced a new MacBook Pro. Tell us about this, because the MacBook Pro seems to be on a really, really steady cadence. And when you've got a really, really steady cadence, it can be kind of difficult differentiating. Have they differentiated here? And what's going on in MacBook Pro land?
Yeah, I think a bunch of the MacBook Pro updates this time around are kind of nice to haves. So, for example, one of the things that they have updated is on the base model, there's now Thunderbolt ports on both sides, which there previously was not, which is like, all right, that's nice. You get an extra Thunderbolt port on the other side as well. So if you're like charging, you don't have to like always be plugged in on the same side. That's fine. I mean, we've got that same 12 megapixel center stage camera, obviously. And then they finally moved they unified the color options. Previously on the low end, you could get like silver or space gray, and you had to go up to the higher end to get the space black. But now it's the same across the entire line. It's silver and space black. This is more than anything a showcase for the M4, and especially the M4 Max, which is also introduced along with this product. The MacBook Pro may not be its best-selling laptop, but it's certainly its most important, because I think it's the one that really appeals to most pros. I mean, a lot of people the majority of Macs that Apple sells are laptops, not desktops. And this is the Pro offering, right? So this is the one that they are sort of putting out there as like, this is our most powerful, laptop around. And so they want it to be great. And that it has yielded a year-over-year cadence, which is most evident in the introduction of the new processor generations. But there's a couple other nice things here too. It gets the same nano texture option that you can get on the iMac. So if you're somebody who works outside a lot, it will increase that. It gets brighter screens for SDR content, which is a nice addition as well if you're working outside. But I think at the end of the day, it's mostly about performance. With those M4 Pro and M4 Max chips on offer, it really is pushing the bounds of what a laptop can do. And I think that's a big part of it. And of course, as with the Mini and as with the iMac, a lot of the emphasis Apple is putting on this is about Apple Intelligence. And, intelligence on the go and building your laptop for generative AI features is a big talking point across the industry these days. So it's no surprise that Apple's jumping in that pool as well.
Yeah, and I agree about not being surprised. The MacBook Pro, the Mac Mini, the iMac, can you give us, just to round things out, are these all available right now? Can they be pre-ordered? Has supply shifted? What's the kind of up and down on whether people can get their hands on these and when?
Yeah, these should all be available for pre-order now. They should be available in Apple stores on November 8th, so that's next week. They're coming in short order. Apple is clearly ready to fulfill demand on these things. And it's really clearly gung-ho about bringing the entire Mac line to the M4. So we can expect probably to see some updates to the remaining Macs sometime beginning to middle of next year on like the Mac Studio, MacBook Air, Mac Pro.
Got it. Well, Dan Moren, I want to thank you so much for taking some time to join us today to give us the lowdown, the high up on the, I don't know, that was weird, the Mac lineup. If folks would like to keep up with what you're doing, where's the best place for them to do that?
Well, you can find me on social media at dmoren. My website is dmoren.com, and I write regularly about Apple for both Macworld and SixColors.com. And of course, I host the weekly Clockwise podcast with Mikah every week on Wednesdays. Go tune in over at relay.fm.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Mikah. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Goodbye. Spooky, spooky. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break before we come back with another awesome interview. I want to take a moment to tell you about Flashpoint, who are bringing you this episode of Tech News Weekly. For security leaders, honestly, 2024 has been a year like no other, a very scary year, because cyber threats and physical security concerns have continued to increase. Now, geopolitical instability is adding a new layer of risk and uncertainty. Let's talk numbers. Last year, there was a staggering 84% rise in ransomware attacks and a 34% jump in data breaches. The result of that, trillions of dollars in financial losses and threats to safety worldwide. And that is where Flashpoint comes in. See, Flashpoint empowers organizations to make mission-critical decisions that will keep people and assets safe. And this is how they do it. They do it by combining cutting-edge technology with the expertise of world-class analyst teams. And with Ignite, Flashpoint's award-winning threat intelligence platform, you get access to critical data, finished intelligence, alerts, and analytics all in one place. You can maximize your existing security investments. In fact, some Flashpoint customers avoid $500 million in fraud loss annually and have a 482% return on investment in 6 months. Flashpoint earned Frost & Sullivan's 2024 Global Product Leadership Award for unrivaled threat data and intelligence. An SVP of cyber operations at a large U.S. financial institution said Flashpoint saves us over $80 million in fraud losses every year. Their proactive approach and sharp insights are crucial in keeping our financial institutions secure. They're not just a solution, they're a strategic partner helping us stay ahead of cyber threats. So it's no wonder Flashpoint is trusted by both mission-critical businesses and governments worldwide. To access the industry's best threat data and intelligence, visit flashpoint.io today. That's flashpoint.io. Alrighty, we are back from the break, and I have to tell you, I am super excited because we have the Vice President of Developer Relations for GitHub joining us today to talk about GitHub Universe. It's Martin Woodward. Welcome to the show, Martin.
Hey, Mikah. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
Thank you for taking the time to join us. I know it's been a busy week for you. So it really is wonderful to have you here with us today and getting to talk about all of the fun stuff that's been announced at GitHub Universe. Before we do talk about those announcements, though, I think it's important. Not everybody knows about GitHub Universe. So what is GitHub Universe?
Sure, yeah. So GitHub Universe is an annual conference we do, usually here in San Francisco, where we bring the whole community of developers into a different place. This year it's Fort Mason, and then we all come in, listen about the latest news in tech, see the latest product announcements from GitHub, and generally have good vibes. It was a great kind of get-together of a lot of people from open source community and the enterprise communities and things getting together and meeting, so that was good.
Awesome. Yeah, I noticed that from the show floor, there were lots of different booths and things like that. Who tends to be, joining from that community? Are there some big names? Listen, people, it's not about favoritism. It's just big names that, people would recognize. For example, and now, of course, it's not coming to me, but at one point I saw Figma was in the background there. Are there other big names like that pop up, and are they there to show off the offerings that they have, or are they there to mostly attend the conference and see what GitHub has rolling out?
Yeah, it's a trade show. So, you have lots of people there from across the whole development world, really. GitHub being the center of the developer ecosystem. So lots of different people come in. So think about IBM, Red Hat, you've got partners like Datadog and things. And you also have like Microsoft Azure were there, different people who want to go talk to developers who they know are using GitHub as the platform kind of thing. They want to come and exhibit. It was a good show.
Awesome. Yeah. And so let's get into the show because, over the course of those 2 days of keynotes and the presentations, a lot was announced. But I think, we can use a nice GitHub blog post to sort of narrow it down to some of the big announcements surrounding Copilot and some of the tools therein. First and foremost, there was a big talk about the multi-model. Very important that we differentiate.
Not modal, model.
Multi-model Copilot. What does that mean for someone who hears that and is going, wait, okay, huh?
Exactly. It's like Spideyverse, isn't it?
Yeah.
So for people that don't know, GitHub Copilot is a developer tool that helps you use the power of AI and large language models to help you code. People can use kind of ChatGPT or Claude or something like that to go and write code in their browser, and it can give them some code. But Copilot brings in the context of your development environment, brings in context of everything else, uses some models, packages up that data, and then sends it to a prompt and then gives you back an answer. So it helps you code very easily. So lots of developers use it. It's used by, I think it's like 1.8 million Copilot users now across the world. And including, there's over 1 million kind of students and teachers and open source maintainers use it for free. So, it's used by a lot of people. Previously, lots. And previously that was all being used. It was using kind of the latest models from OpenAI. So we've been through different versions. It started off with a fine-tuned version of GPT-3, and now it's running GPT-4o. What we announced at the show was actually developers now have the choice between GPT-4o or Claude 3.5 Sonnets, which is a cool new LLM that lots of developers are getting into. And then also, probably the most surprisingly to the developer audience, Google's Gemini 1.5 Pro as well. So it's across the whole ecosystem. You're able to kind of use the LLM that you want to help you, solve that problem.
Yeah. And, I think I'll make that external observation of the surprise there. Definitely knowing that GitHub is under the umbrella that is Microsoft. I too was pretty kind of excited to see that you can go across the aisle, so to speak, and that people would be able to use Google Gemini as part of that experience. And I think the cool thing that does is it really does help separate Copilot from what we've known to be the underlying technology up to this point in some ways. I know it's not entirely that, but thinking of it as an OpenAI GPT tool to being sort of agnostic and being able to, change the underlying tooling. Now, one of the things that I actually wanted to talk to you about with this conference is that many, if not most, if not all of the demonstrations were very much live. And what I'm kind of curious, just your take on that, because I will explain it again from an external perspective to say that I have appreciated seeing different companies that are showing off, in particular, AI technologies, doing live demos and rolling with the system, because it feels more honest, it feels more authentic, and it also teaches people how to go about, dealing with a prompt and a response that maybe is unexpected or goes one way, and trying to make changes therein. Is that a conscious effort in setting up a conference like this and showing off tools that involve generative AI for you?
It is for me. Developers are skeptical by nature, and so I think you have to show the tool as it's really being used to prove it's real. With these, large language models with a lot of generative AI, you get amazing results sometimes from all of them, but they're non-deterministic, and so they don't do the same thing every time. And so you need to kind of show what it really is like to use for a developer to trust that this is a tool that they want to try. And so we insist on doing live demos during our keynotes, during the breakout sessions as much as we can, just to give people that authentic experience, which makes it fun for us, because you kind of, you want to go, yeah, I knew this was totally going to do this, and you sort of, it's kind of a trust fall into the AI to make sure it's going to work. So there's lots of rehearsals and there's lots of kind of practices, and you also have to be quite a good coder to be up there on stage. Cassidy Williams, who's up on stage to do the Copilot demo, she's an amazing
Mm-hmm.
coder, and you kind of have to, so that you can, you're checking, yep, that code makes sense, great, while you're talking and cracking really bad Git puns.
Yeah,
but hey, we'll branch out from doing Git puns. That's not good. But yeah.
There we go. That's good. It's very difficult though. Oh man, that is, I can't imagine, because, while I'm doing this show and I'm talking to you, there are things that are going on in the background, and I already have, the level of ability to do that. I can't imagine also trying to go, that code actually, that's true skill. Another tool that was shown off, that honestly I was pretty excited about, is called GitHub Spark. And I was curious if you could tell us a little bit about GitHub Spark, and maybe kind of where this tool came from. Like, has it always been something that was planned? Did something come along and you're like, you know what, this is what makes sense next? It just seems like, in my opinion, a natural evolution of things, but I'm curious if that's kind of what it was, just a natural evolution.
So as we've been using a lot of the AI tools, we're finding that you get this ability to code with natural language. And so, and by that I mean, speak human and get code kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And we have a team called GitHub Next that are our R&D arm, or research arm. And so they kind of wanted to take that and explore it to its ultimate. What if we focus around the language prompt itself? How can we create a structure which allows people who are technical but not necessarily expert coders, or not coders at all, to be able to become developers, to be able to code? GitHub have a goal of helping the world create 1 billion developers in the world. There's only 8 billion people, so we need to obviously make it easier for people to code. And an interface like Spark, where somebody like you, Mikah, who's technical but not a coder, or somebody like Leo who knows how to code but doesn't code all the time, can kind of type some prompts in, can kind of say, hey, build me this kind of app, do this, do that, and can iterate and build an application that works for them, that solves their problem, and deploys it and has it running in a working website with a working database backend, all from a single prompt. It's pretty magical.
Yeah, seeing some of the examples on stage were certainly inspiring, because you kind of can go from there and go, oh, here's something. And I like the idea of being able to use it maybe as a means of, I don't know, it started there for me, and I took it and said, okay, now what if I could feed it kind of these custom code sets and get help when I am doing little coding projects? Because I've got, a couple devices, like a certain hackable badge, but also a little LED display, and they each use kind of their own flavors of coding language. And if I could give it the documentation and then kind of, here's what I've made, here's the part where I'm struggling. I love this idea of sort of a collaborative building tool, because that's how I learned how to do web development coding in the first place, was kind of playing back and forth between those two things, and learning HTML, CSS, and at the time a little bit of JavaScript. And all of that was kind of in this play and create space. And so I do think that, on the face of it, it may seem like something that is all and entirely a way to just type in some words and get something out. But I think that folks shouldn't forget that this is also an opportunity to inspire people to reach further, because you start there and then you go, but now I want to change it like this. And then you actually learn how to do it to change it like that after you've seen it being built. So I think it's going to inspire people in so many ways. And that's one thing where it feels very in line with Microsoft, because we've seen them do a lot of low code, no code stuff on the enterprise side. So in that way, I thought, GitHub Spark here as this tool seems pretty cool. Now, that is kind of there on the it feels more consumer reaching. There was also a lot when it came to the developer experience with GitHub, GitHub Copilot and VS Code, Copilot Workspace, Copilot Autofix. Before we let you go, could you tell us a little bit about those other kind of grab bag things that have come? Although I'm sure for the teams who work on it, it doesn't feel grab bag, but it kind of got grouped into one little category there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a blog post you can read with over 50 features that were shipped at the event. But I think probably what was also interesting is, it's an event where we bring the community together. So as well as all the features which GitHub shipped, which is cool, we're also celebrating the fact that actually the community on GitHub, Python, is actually now the #1 language that we're seeing people build products in on GitHub, overtaking JavaScript, which is fascinating. And that kind of shows you again, that's a different kind of community is coming into code. The Python developers, there's lots of people from maths backgrounds, from science backgrounds, makers and hobbyists and things coming into coding. And it just shows you how the community is really growing and continues to grow year over year. And new people come into coding, which helps everybody, because then we can, solve problems through code and, get better. And it's also across the whole world as well. We're seeing, a massive rise in the amount of people coming from India, and from Brazil and different countries as well, all joining this ecosystem that used to be quite, Bay Area centric, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anything else that you want to mention from the event? Maybe one thing that really for you, you're excited to tell people about, or that you've liked playing around with before we let you go?
Yeah, I mean, so I do a lot of large language model development and a lot of, development around AI tools. And so we actually shipped a product called GitHub Models, and that allows you to take one model and compare it side by side with another model, feed it the same prompt, have the same system prompts, and then compare the results and compare things like how quickly it gives you the results. Because some models, take a bit longer, use more processing time, are more expensive, but give you more data, more reason behind it. Whereas there are models that are much quicker, but maybe don't give you quite the same reason, quite the same responses. And so this allows us to give you that, allow you to compare the models side by side, have the choice, and see which models fit for purpose. Because there's no point spending, dollars per kind of prompt when you could actually spend less than a cent per prompt and get good enough results back. So that's probably the coolest thing for me, the thing I'll probably use the most, to be honest.
Very, very cool. Yeah, I love that idea. Like you said, depending on what the developer is making, maybe they don't need to have the more robust model, and they could save some money. This one provides exactly what I need, and I don't need more. It's just determining, is there a pumpkin in the photo, or is there not a pumpkin in the photo? I don't necessarily need the highest level of reasoning from an app. I can just use something that's a little bit more like you said, cost effective. Martin Woodward, I want to thank you so very much again for taking the time this week on a very busy week to join us here on the show and help us understand some of the fun stuff that GitHub has announced. Congrats on what has been an excellent another GitHub Universe. If people would like to follow along with what's going on, where are some places they can go to stay up to date?
Well, they can just go to github.com. That gives you the latest results. And then also, you can follow us as well. I'm Martin Woodward on most social media, including GitHub. So there we go.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and hope to see you again soon. Alrighty, folks. We are going to take another quick break. I've got a story of the week for you, and then we'll say goodbye. But let me tell you about Veeam, who are bringing you this episode of Tech News Weekly. Without your data, your customers' trust turns to digital dust. That's why Veeam's data protection and ransomware recovery ensures that you can secure and restore your enterprise data wherever and whenever you need it, no matter what happens. Ransomware is terrifying, and Veeam is going to help keep that data protected. As the #1 global market leader in data resilience, Veeam is trusted by more than 77% of the Fortune 500 to keep their businesses running when digital disruptions like ransomware strike. That's because Veeam lets you back up and recover your data instantly across your entire cloud ecosystem, proactively detect malicious activity, remove the guesswork by automating your recovery plans and policies, and get real-time support from ransomware recovery experts. Data is the lifeblood of your business, so get data resilient with Veeam. Go to Veeam, VEEAM.com to learn more. And we thank Veeam for sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. All right, I wanted to round out the show by talking about something that's coming soon to iOS, iPadOS, etc., because I think there are some important tidbits of information that one needs when it comes to Apple's Genmoji. So back at WWDC, when Apple revealed the next version of its operating systems, iOS 18, iPadOS 18, macOS Sequoia, etc., Apple revealed AI, Apple Intelligence, the AI for the rest of us, as the company called it. And with it came a host of features, many of which are, well, I should say, some of which are now available. If you have the latest version of iOS 18, which is 18.1, iPadOS 18.1, etc., then you have access to the writing-based tools. And look, we've talked plenty about that. I've had people on the show to talk about that. If you watch iOS Today, you've learned plenty about that. It's everywhere. So I'm not going to go into detail about it. But one of the features that Apple announced was Genmoji. And this feature lets you create emoji using generative AI. The way that it works is by using kind of a custom trained image model so that you can type in a description and out pops an emoji style image. So you could say, for example, a robot chef, an emoji with a mustache, a can of tuna, an astronaut with gray hair, a chihuahua, which I'm just now realizing I have never created using Genmoji. And that is an oversight on my part. And what it'll do is it will spin a little bit and pop out an answer or a result, and it will actually do a few results, and you can choose from them. Keith Broney over at Emojipedia has given a really good rundown of Keith's hands-on time with Apple's Genmoji AI emoji generator. And with this, Keith talks about some really kind of interesting things. First and foremost, this tool works in your messages, and you access it by tapping on the emoji keyboard, and then there's a little plus icon to the right of where you describe an emoji. And that's like the search functionality for emoji. It lets you then create one. Also, if you describe an emoji that doesn't exist, then it will prompt you to say, why don't you just generate one? So you can do it that way as well. Now, there are some protections in place. You can keep the system rather keeps you from doing things like not safe for work images. It will say, try a different description. It will keep you from, if descriptions are too long, it won't do that. The other day I typed in something like, I just typed in purple iPhone and it would not generate it. But if I typed in purple smartphone, then it would. So it's clear that certain brands are probably protected in that. I imagine if you type in something like Shrek eating a waffle, it's going to say type something else. So you'd have to do a green ogre eating a waffle. It can also use a person to serve as the foundation for an emoji. So an example of that is if you're talking to another person who's in your contacts and you have a contact photo for that person, you are able to choose that person as a contact or as a kind of prompt addition, and it will create a Genmoji based on that person. But that's not all that's involved with this. One way that there was a kind of breakthrough of the protections, there was a user on X, also known as Twitter, called Greg's Gadgets, who was able to, by creating a contact for Donald Trump, create a Donald Trump emoji. And so there are some ways still to circumvent the system. I remind you that this is all still in beta, and I imagine that this will be something that gets fixed in the in the interim. It's still early days as far as this goes, and you will see some kind of errors that go along with it. But there's one more thing that I want to talk about when it comes to these Genmoji, and we will get to that after we take another little quick break, because I've got another sponsor for you, and that is Big ID, who are bringing you this episode of Tech News Weekly. Of course, you know that data security is paramount, but just knowing that is not enough. You actually need to fortify your data against bigger problems. All custodians of data need proactive solutions, and Big ID can be that proactive solution. You can trust that your most valuable asset is secured. You can ensure the promise of AI doesn't become a security pitfall by using Big ID's Gen AI solutions to help you navigate the labyrinthine world of AI from the CISO perspective. Big ID is the first and only solution that allows you to take a defense in-depth approach to automating manual processes, improving accuracy and actionability, and applying AI and ML to cut through the noise, improve risk management, and enable a robust data security strategy through unmatched data source coverage. Big ID allows you to find and classify your data accurately and at scale on-prem or in the cloud for structured, unstructured, and semi-structured data, covering hundreds of data sources. You can also train AI on only data that is safe to use. That's a big thing. You don't want to accidentally train the data on something that you're not supposed to be using or that could get you in trouble. This is only on safe data. Minimize your attack surface through policy-driven retention management by removing redundant and outdated data. You can audit and inspect what data is being shared with AI and be alerted when usage policies are breached. Telenor uses Big ID to show their customers they're handling the data in a secure way. They say, quote, "We want to focus on the business and have a partner like Big ID to focus on the tech. We wanted a partner that understood what we're doing and can help us. Companies who use Big ID are showing that they're taking data seriously." Big ID has won numerous awards, including Market Leader in Data Security Posture Management in the Global InfoSec Awards by Cyber Defense Magazine, Best Data Security Company in the Cybersecurity Excellence Awards, and a coveted spot in the Citizens JMP Cyber 66 report, which recognizes Big ID for elevating data management and security with first-of-its-kind AI technology. So, start protecting your sensitive data wherever your data lives at bigid.com/TNW. You can get a free demo to see how Big ID can help your organization reduce data risk and accelerate the adoption of generative AI. You're probably using it, so you should hop on board. Again, that's bigid.com/TNW. Also, there's a free new report that provides valuable insights and key trends on AI adoption, challenges, and the overall impact of Gen AI across organizations. bigid.com/TNW. And we thank Big ID for sponsoring this week's episode of Tech News Weekly. All right, back from the break, and we will round things out. Right now, I'm talking about the Genmoji, the emoji generator that's coming in 18.2. Now, the very awesome Emojipedia, which kind of catalogs emoji and gives descriptions for them, and also talks about Unicode and the kind of body of decisions that take place there. were able to do a hands-on of the new Genmoji AI emoji generator. Keith Brony of Emojipedia is writing about this. And there's one interesting aspect that I wanted to mention with this. First and foremost, a lot of people, especially those that aren't, as tech-headed as we all are unaware of from where emoji come. They think that Apple make emoji and make the decisions about emoji, and Google make the decisions about emoji, and they come from your phone, right? And in part, that is true, because it turns out that the group that is responsible for the creation of emoji are headed by people who are from these companies. So you've got someone from Google, you've got someone from Apple on the team the last time I checked in, and this subcommittee. And so in that sense, yes, they are, but just talking to Apple alone is not going to make it so that the emoji, or complaining to Apple is not going to make it so that a new emoji makes its way to the system. Instead, the emoji subcommittee and Unicode as the larger group defines a set of emoji based on a code point, and a description is provided for that emoji. And then individual companies, organizations, whomever, whatever systems are able to display emoji, they assign an image to that code point and description, with the understanding that the description provided by Unicode matches up in some way to the image that is displayed. So in that sense, Apple is responsible for the way that the emoji is rendered, but not the description for the emoji. So it is limited to the scope of how it is described. And the same applies for Google. That's why Google emoji and Apple emoji look different from one another. But you can kind of see the same wide smiling eyes and the screaming emoji, that there's a similarity between the two, but they are different. The art rendering is different. Now, when it comes to this, you have to understand then that Genmoji do not fall within this same scope. Genmoji are images that are generated by the system and simply appear as if they are emoji. But they are not part of Unicode, and they are not able to be, defined with a Unicode code point, which means that they may not show up in different places. But because of how Apple is rendering them, it gives the impression that they are emoji. And that's what I love about this Emojipedia piece, is that in the Emojipedia piece, they talk about a new API that was introduced with 18.0 called NS Adaptive Image Glyph API. And the NS Adaptive Image Glyph API is basically a means of getting an image of some sort to render as if it were an emoji. And so if an app supports this API, then the Genmoji that you create will be able to be rendered in those apps for you, the person who creates it, and them, the person who's viewing it on the other end, which is going to further muddy the waters in terms of believing that these are emoji. So what that would mean is that if, say, for example, the X/Twitter app decides not to implement the NS Adaptive Image Glyph API, then someone might go writing a tweet, add one of their little Genmoji to it, and then it wouldn't properly show up. And right now, if I send Genmoji to a person who is not running at least iOS 18.0, is running a previous version, then the Genmoji show up as images. they actually show up, they appear in the message as full-on images. And so you can kind of tap through them like a carousel if you send more than one. So understand that when 18.2 comes out, you need to be aware of where you're using these, how you're using them, and whether they'll actually work in those different places. So the NS Adaptive Image Glyph basically gives developers the ability to support Genmoji anywhere that supports rich text, but you got to make sure that you're able to do that as well. So that is a quick little kind of rundown of where Genmoji are right now, with the understanding that this is still in beta and is supposed to come out. At this point, it's looking like early next year. We'll see, though. Folks, that is going to bring us to the end of this episode of Tech News Weekly. I want to thank you all for tuning in this week. The show publishes every Thursday at twit.tv/TNW. That's where you go to subscribe to the show in audio and video formats. I will not be here next week, but the wonderful Emily Forlini will be joining, Emily Forlini of PC Mag will be joining Abrar Alhiti of CNET for that episode. And so I hope that I know you all will enjoy that. They are both wonderful. And Emily's going to do, I know, a great job for her second time hosting Tech News Weekly in my place. In the meantime, if you'd like to get all of our shows ad-free, you should check out Club Twit. It's just $7 a month, and that gets you every single Twit show with no ads. You also gain access to the exclusive Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, including behind the scenes, before the show, after the show, special Club Twit events get published there, and access to the Club Twit Discord server, a fun place to go to chat with your fellow Club Twit members and those of us here at Twit. Oh, and by the way, I have a very, very, very exciting announcement. If you have been itching to try Club Twit, well, we're now offering 14 days free. Yes, indeed. You can get 2 weeks of Club Twit free, so you get a little taste and see if it's for you. So if you haven't checked out Club Twit yet and you want to be part of the fun, well, join it. twit.tv/clubtwit. For a limited time, we're offering 2 weeks free, and we'd love to see you in the club and prove to you that it's a great place to be, at which point you'll be able to stick around with us for even longer. So yes, tell your friends, tell your family, get everybody to join, and lest we forget, you can also have your friends get you free months of Club Twit with our referral program, twit.tv/clubtwit/referral. So thank you to those of you who are Club Twit members. Welcome to those of you who are new to the club. And we look forward to seeing even more of you joining soon. If you'd like to follow me online, I'm at Mikah Sargent on many a social media network, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUA.coffee, where I've got links to the places I'm most active online. Be sure to tune in later this week, Sunday, to watch my show, Hands on Tech. And of course, watch later today, iOS Today and Hands on Mac, which publish on Thursdays. Thanks so much. And I will not catch you again next week, but Emily will. I'll see you again in 2 weeks. Goodbye, and thank you for all the fish. Look, I know it's thanks for all the fish. It doesn't matter. Bye.